are you?
So the topic of authenticity has always been kind of a hard concept for me because in middle school, I had the braces and I was kind of chubby and I had glasses and I was the whole deal. And, based on this couple of years where I had all of that, a lot of insecurities kind of stayed with me because of that time period. And it's been really hard for me to be myself and want to be authentic because I wasn't always proud of it. But over the years, and with this help of this community, I can tell you right now, standing here, that I am fully proud to be who I am, inside and out.
Who are you?
My peers often refer to me as perfect. They reference my good grades, how I'm always nice to everyone, I'm pretty, funny, confident. But if you really knew me, you'd know that I'm a far cry from perfect. I snap at my parents in the morning, I lose my patience at slow drivers, I can't go a day without spilling something on myself. But I've come to accept these quirks about myself, as everyone should, and celebrate my imperfections.
Who are you?
I was once someone who would bully people in 7th and 8th grade. I was one of those douchebags at school that people would hate. Not like, sorry for the language, but it's kind of true. But I have honestly grown out of that. I used to do bad stuff, hang around with bad kids. But I have grown, I have matured from that, and I have honestly grown a better person and a man, honestly.
All of us have times when we hide behind masks and we don't show who we are. We sometimes like to hide behind the masks because sometimes we think that if we do, people won't judge us, people won't be cruel to us. We think that people will like us, and sometimes we're afraid to be who and what we really are. What would happen if we didn't wear our masks? Well, the first step, of course, is always to know the truth of who you are, and that is indeed the key for being authentic. And in order to just do you, you've got to begin to take a moment to explore who you are and how you show up in the world. Now, the author, Emily Cady, she wrote the beautiful book, Lessons in Truth. She talked about two parts of ourselves. And the first part, she said, is our personality. This is our human part. This is our soul's expression. It's filled with the ways that we perceive, the ways we think and do things on a very conscious level. And then she says we have our individualized self, our individuality. And that is the way that the Christ, the divine within us, the original blessing that we talked about with Nyla, that is the way the Christ shows up in us, and it's how God expresses through each and every one of us. And so as we look at the first person here, we see that his personality self shows up as insecurity, shows up filled with self-doubt and uncertainty and judgment from others, and takes that in. But his individualized Christ self knows the truth, that he is beyond all that, and who he really is a wonderful, good, solid person that no one can touch with their words or actions. Our second person, her personality shows up as Miss Perfect. And so she has all of that going on, and she gets compliments, and a lot of good stuff comes to her from that. But underneath, there's this part of her that says, I'm not all that. It's not the truth. I'm not that way every minute of the day. And so there's this sense of disconnect because she's not Miss Perfect all the time. And her Christ self, her individualized Christ within, moves from that disconnect of who she is and how she shows up here or there. And it moves to self-acceptance and self-love. Now, our third person, you could say that he was a DB, and that he was rather misguided in the ways that he showed up. And so he had those ways of being, and he thought he was tough, and he was all that, and don't mess with me kind of stuff. That was his personality self. But he opened up to knowing the truth of who he really is. And he was able to know that being tough and basically being that DB is not where it's at all. But instead, being a loving, good person that is now filled with wisdom to choose a new way is who indeed he really is. So let's thank them, our wonderful teens, for sharing with us who they are been. And I think that you remember the song from Crosby, Stills, Nash & Young, Teach Your Children? Some of you are old enough to remember that. Some of you have no clue what I'm talking about. But anyway, it's a cool song, and it's a song about teach your children, and let them be, but also be wise as a parent and learn from your children because they have things to teach you as well. And so I think I want to put that song into action today. And I think about the courage it requires to stand up here, because when I talked to these three teens, I said, I want you to wear a mask. How exciting is that, right? And then I said, I want you to think about something that you don't normally say about yourself. I want you to take a risk and be authentic and share something that's underneath the surface, but share something that's revealing about who you are in the core of your being. And so they all really did a great job at doing that. And because they were willing to be authentic, all of us here feel like we know them a little more deeply and a little more honestly, right? That is the power of authenticity. And it is the power of being willing to show up as who you are on a deep level. And so I think we can learn from them. And I think what we can say is if they can do that, we can do it. So here's what I want you to do. I want you to ask yourself, who am I? Who am I? Beyond the roles that I'm in my family or in work or in school or with my friends, who am I beyond my roles? And beyond the labels that I attach to my identity regarding my race, my religion, maybe my politics, whatever those things are. And how about this? And beyond your preferences and the things you like and the things that you're fond of. Like for me, it would be shoes, 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 and more shoes, and sushi, 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 sushi. So beyond my you can't tell that I'm Asian, but anyway, beyond that, beyond the things I like and beyond the things that I identify with and beyond the things I do, I'm going to ask myself the question, who am I underneath? Who do I show up with and as if you really were to know me, just like our teens did? What do I really think and believe about myself? And what is it that the Christ within, the truth within us, really knows about us? And what is it that we are trying to uncover? So I want you to ask that question of yourself and think about the Christ qualities, the divine qualities that you have. Begin to ask yourself, how do I show up for my Christ? Am I wise? Am I creative? Am I loving? Am I brave or passionate? Am I peaceful? How would I, in the core of my being, describe myself? And so I want you to think of one thing. Does everybody have one thing, like if you were really honest, a really good quality about yourself that maybe not everybody knows? And you know, sometimes this is a hard thing to do because we're so quick to point out our flaws and our shortcomings and our mistakes and our errors. So to be able to stand in a deep truth and to say, this is who I am. I claim it and own it as the individualized expression of who I am. That can be a really powerful thing because we have all those messages that say, when I do that, I'm bragging. Or I'm not perfect at that, so I can't really say I do that. But you know, the Spirit of God within you knows, and it honors and it loves you for who you are. So really hold in your mind and heart one thing that you are. One special quality that is really the truth of who you are. And you have it? Who doesn't have one? Everyone's got one. Good. Now I want you to turn to somebody and tell them what it is. There's a lot of people here, so there's no shortage of people to tell. Just go ahead, blurt it out and tell them what your quality is. Everybody take a turn. All right. How did that feel? Was that good? Yeah. Wasn't that good? Oh, you're still telling on yourself. Okay, good. All right. Awesome. Okay. So notice the energy in the room. It feels good to share the good about ourselves. It feels awesome to share the good about ourselves. And that's what we call being real. That's what we call being authentic from our Christ nature. And so that is the thing that I want you to take with you today in being authentic. Own that, claim it, talk about it, and bring it out very, very boldly. Now, sometimes, before you get too excited about your proud self, though, sometimes we have some things we want to work on, right? Sometimes we have some Christ gifts that we want to work on. So, for example, for myself, I realize that my life journey has been about learning to become strong and to speak up and to tell the truth. Now you can't shut me up because I'm always telling the truth. And so sometimes I get a little carried away. But when I think about how I was for 40 years, afraid to tell the truth, afraid that people were going to judge me or criticize or shut me down, I think about that and I'm glad and I'm grateful for the willingness to be a person that now will stand up for the truth out of love and out of respect and out of faith that things can be better and bigger and greater. Now, one of our teens also has a story about how he cultivated himself and how he opened up to developing a gift in his journey. So please welcome to the platform Tony Campus.
So I have a story to tell you guys, and who else thinks that sometimes kids have a lot of anger in them? Because like when I was a kid, I had so much anger. I would like yell at random people that I see, and like even when we go out to dinner, I didn't get what I want, I would still like yell at them and tell them to go get what I want, and I just had a lot of anger built up in me, and I didn't know what to do with it. But in one day, like it was winter time, and a storm blew through, and we went to church. It was our old church. No one else was there except my family and the minister. And the minister was talking about love, and everyone has love, and if you don't have love, you can get love. And I interrupted her, and I said, "Don't worry, I don't need love. I sell my soul to the devil, which my dad was like, he told the minister that, which was like, I guess is a sin. But anyways, she looked at me and she like pointed at me and she like said, "Don't worry, honey, we can get it back from the devil." And I didn't realize then that we could, but throughout the years, I think I evolved more, and I guess I got rid of all that anger that was built up inside me. And coming to Unity is like the last step I had to get all the love, and how I met all these loving people in here. Yeah, I love all you guys. And it was just, and I guess I'm a loving person now. I have no anger built up in me, although I still have those days that I wake up, I'm just like, I don't want to do it. I just want to lay in my bed and sleep. We all have those days, am I right? I'm right. So anyways, I just want to thank you guys for letting me talk and sharing my story with all you guys. And let's have a great rest of the service.
Oh my gosh. So, what Tony was talking about was the willingness to turn his hatred towards himself and other people, and he made a choice from his Christ self to be the authentic, loving person that he is. And I kind of wondered if he ever knew the story that comes from the book of Genesis in the 33rd chapter. It's the story of Esau and Jacob. You know, they were two brothers. And they did not get along very well. In fact, they were always fighting. They were always at each other because they were very, very different. Esau was the oldest one, and back then in ancient times, if you were the oldest son, you received the family blessing, which meant that you got a huge inheritance and that you were looked upon as the family leader in the days ahead, and you really had a position of privilege. So Esau was the oldest son, and Jacob was the younger one. Now Esau, there's a couple things about Esau. First of all, he was really hairy. Not that that matters, but I just thought you should know. He was really hairy, and he wasn't very bright. And he was very hungry. Okay? So know those three things about Esau. Jacob was younger. He was smarter. But he was also his mother's favorite, where Esau was his father's favorite. So there came a time when Esau was really hungry, and Jacob had this great big bowl of lentil soup. And Jacob knew how to work with Esau, and so he said, "You know what, you want some soup? You can have it if you give me the family blessing." Well, Esau said, "Yeah, it's yours." And he ate the soup. Well, time went on, and even though he was willing to give it up because he didn't really get what he was doing, the real clincher came when Jacob plotted with his mother to fool their elderly blind father, and he pretended that he was Esau. And so their father gave Jacob the family blessing in this very special sacred moment. His father thought it was Esau, and once it was done, it couldn't be taken back. Once Esau realized what had happened, so much anger welled up inside him, so much hatred filled him, and he threatened to kill Jacob, so much so that they parted ways. One went to the north, one went to the south, and they didn't see each other for many, many, many years. Well, then there came a time, and there was a famine, and there were a lot of struggles. At this time, Esau became extremely wealthy. Jacob was struggling a bit. And he realized he needed to go to his brother to receive some help. He was very nervous about it. He was scared to death. In fact, there's the famous story of how he wrestled with an angel one night as he was struggling with his anxiety and his fright over the situation. But he was determined that he was going to go forward. And so the morning came, and he was preparing to go into the kingdom, to the land where Esau was. Not completely confident, he sent his wives and his children all first. He put them out first, and he put some gifts out, and then he put out the others, and then he came forward, and he came bowing on the ground over and over and over. But this is what happened. Let me read this to you. Now Jacob looked up and saw Esau was coming with 400 men. So he divided the children among Leah and Rachel and the two maids, and he put the maids with their children up in front, and then Leah and her children, and then Rachel, and then Joseph last of all. He himself then went on, and he bowed to the ground 7 times until he came near his brother. But Esau, he ran to meet him, and he embraced him, and he fell on his neck, and he kissed him, and they wept. Do you see what just happened? Esau went from being a hateful, bitter, justifiably angry brother to showing up as the Christ. And as he showed up as his true self, as love and forgiveness, all was healed and only love remained. And so we look at this story and we recognize that all things are possible when we allow the Christ in us to come up and to let that authentically come out. And we're going to open ourselves to also allowing that to happen with us as we come forward this week. And so I invite you to open up to your authentic self. Allow yourself to really know who you are as the Christ, and don't get stuck in your personality self when it gets in the way. Don't believe that that's who you are. Because when you do that, you hold yourself back from being the blessing and the gift that you are. You hold yourself back from knowing your true worth. Today, choose to let your authentic Christ self come out with all the gifts that it has, specialized and unique, personalized in you. And as you do, remember, there is no need for a mask anymore. You are enough.
We don't need these anymore.
That's right. They don't. And neither do you. Just do you.